Welcome to California Now, a podcast produced by Visit California. I'm Soterios Johnson. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way we all think about travel. So much so, in fact, that Visit California has created a responsible travel hub on its website. You can find it at visitcalifornia.com/respect. This hub highlights new guidelines for exploring the state in a safe and sustainable manner, and this episode is going to build on those efforts. We'll be talking to three guests who share their insights from different corners of the travel industry. We'll start with what the future holds for air travel by focusing on San Francisco International Airport.
There's going to be some type of quantum leap in terms of what the airport experience looks like, and we really think that's going to have to do with some type of on-site health testing, health registration component.
And we'll talk with veteran hotel executive James Bermingham about his efforts to give traveling families peace of mind.
Well, Montage International has developed several programs and protocols designed to reassure our guests that traveling during the pandemic is safe.
We'll also hear from the owner of a brewery and distillery on the Central Coast who explains what might be different the next time you sit down in a bar. That's all coming up on California Now. If you haven't seen the inside of an airport in quite a while, you're not alone. Things might be a little different the next time you touch down or take off in California. New precautions are in place to help people travel safely and with confidence. Here to tell us about what's different and what to expect is Doug Yakel, Public Information Officer at San Francisco International Airport. Welcome to California Now, Doug.
Thanks for having me.
So this may seem like a strange opening question, but these are strange times. So here goes. How is everything at SFO? What's the mood over there?
So I would say that, number one, it is a much more quiet place than you may remember. And that's really one of the big things that we're working on is getting passengers to come back at the level that they did pre-pandemic, really restoring air travel to the levels that we knew and enjoyed before this pandemic hit. So we are in the midst of a transformation, I would say. And at the moment, we're seeing passenger volumes that are probably about 85% below where they would normally be at this time of year. So we've got a lot of ground to make up.
Now, California is known for being a land of innovation, and San Francisco in particular almost defines the cutting edge. Does that reputation extend to SFO in terms of dealing with this pandemic?
We hope that it does. You know, we like to think that an airport really reflects the values of its region, and being a Bay Area airport like ours, we think that that the use of innovation, first adopters, the use of technology and creative ideas kind of comes with the territory. We live and serve in a region that is open to trying new things, and we're hopeful that that helps us in this pandemic as well.
So let's just say I've landed at SFO. I grab my carry-on, I walk down the jetway, enter the terminal. Take me through it. What do I see? What's going to be different now?
Well, for starters, we're acknowledging the fact that people that come into our airport may be coming from another region in the U.S. where the restrictions, the health orders might be different, and the expectations might be lower than what you would have walking into a California airport. So immediately, as soon as you get off the jetway into the concourse, you're going to see information and education. Really, it's designed to get you quickly up to speed on what the rules of the game are at California airports and what you need to be doing. And obviously, the first one is the universal face masking expectation. We were the first U.S. airport to require that, and that's still in effect. So getting people to understand that. There's also information about physical distancing, the fact that there are still stay-at-home orders. These are really things that we're focused on. And we've actually got a team of people that we call ambassadors, and their role is to patrol every one of our terminals to ensure that people are up to speed with what's required. The idea being that if you had somebody that maybe wasn't in the know, an ambassador could approach them and tell them that they're an airport representative and help them understand and get compliant with that masking requirement. They actually carry free masks with them if needed.
And so what happens if when they encounter somebody who doesn't want to wear a mask?
Well, and we've seen that, and our group is really focused on information and education. So at this point, we're not in the issuing fines or citations. We really want to help people understand what the expectation is. And of course, we've seen a broad range of reactions. We've seen everything from innocent and innocuous, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot, to people who are have beliefs that would prevent them from complying with this. And we know that we're going to get a broad cross section, but our goal is to make sure that everybody that lands at SFO has a clear understanding of what's required here.
And so, are you finding that for the most part, travelers are actually complying with the rules?
We are, and we measure mass compliance, and we're above 95%. So we're very happy with where we're at.
So much of our experience of being at the airport is being around other people. How do you mitigate that to allow for social distancing?
It's a challenge because if you think about air travel, there's multiple steps throughout the process where you're grouped close together with other people, right? Uh, the airport itself, I think, has a greater advantage because there's simply more real estate to reconfigure. And we've been renovating a lot of our terminals over the past 10 years. And anytime we do, we always expand the footprint. And we're glad that we did because that gives us more space to play with. And it allows us that ability to reconfigure an area like a security checkpoint. And if you come to SFO, you'll see that we've installed on the ground physical distancing markers to help people maintain that minimum distance in a place like a ticket counter, a security checkpoint, or even at a baggage claim area. I think obviously the real challenge is on board an aircraft because of the confined space there. And there are some airlines that are still blocking the middle seat, but being an ex-airline guy, I understand that that's not a long-term recipe for financial viability. So, and that's probably why some type of testing component is going to have to eventually come into place in the air travel experience to allow airlines to book these airplanes fuller than they are today, and to have travelers be comfortable with that.
So, what's SFO doing as far as trying to keep the air clean and filtered, or bringing in outside air into the airport?
This is another benefit of many recent renovations to our facilities is as we renovate these facilities, we're also installing new state-of-the-art air handling units. That's your heating and air conditioning systems. And these new systems have built-in UV filtration systems, which actually kill germs that are passing through the air. So this is really something where it was a nice feature to have with new facilities, but with the onset of this pandemic, it just took on a whole new found importance.
Right, right. And I'm guessing a lot of these efforts aren't unique to SFO, right? I imagine you're probably in steady communication with other airports around California, comparing notes about, what's working well, what's not working well.
Absolutely. And it even goes beyond that. But yes, there's amongst the large airports, there is a steady dialogue about what's going on and what's being tried. And I think it's really, I compare this to 9/11. And after 9/11, the federal government really defined what the new standards would be across all US airports. And I think that's kind of what's missing here. And that's left individual airports to begin exploring this wilderness on their own, if you will, in the hopes that eventually the industry standard will emerge. And so, we've been in good conversations with other airports. I know that LAX has pilot tested a program to do temperature checks on passengers in their international terminal, and we've got this on-site testing capability. So all the airports are kind of working towards the same thing, and that is really bringing into focus what that new normal is going to be.
So, Doug, you're kind of saying, like, just like we had changes in security after 9/11, you're kind of picturing like a new required, maybe health component or health requirement for people traveling now that we're in this pandemic and post pandemic as well.
Yeah, we think that's a strong possibility. And what we're seeing starting to play out at airports across the world is really suggesting this very strongly. And if you think about it, after 9/11, air travel recovered pretty quickly, but it did because there was this clear set of enhanced procedures in place. And obviously, there were some growing pains with it, but it really gave passengers this kind of certainty and this predictability to know that everybody that's on this airplane with me has gone through this exact same process and I can feel good about that. And I think that's probably what needs to happen from a health perspective in order for us to really get back to the level of activity we saw before the pandemic.
So, what would that look like? How would that play out?
So I think most likely it would give passengers a few different ways to get compliant, if you will. And the pilot program that we're launching with United Airlines in October really gives passengers a few different options to get tested on these flights from SFO to Hawaii. They can either do a test that gets mailed to their home that they do in advance, or they could show up on the day of their travel and get tested on site at the airport. And I think that you'll probably see this gravitate towards several different options where an individual can do it the day that they're there, or if it's more convenient, maybe they'll do it within 72 hours of travel through their health provider, whatever works best for them. And then, even after a vaccine is found, you'll have some type of process where there's a certification that you've been vaccinated. And if you haven't, then you fall back to some of those other options. And, savvy travelers will always figure out the best way to get through the airport process. And this will be very much the same thing. I mean, what's going to get me through the airport the fastest? And that means pre-certifying that I've either been vaccinated or I've already tested negative within the 72-hour window of time. They're going to do that to save time at the airport.
Right. Can we touch a little bit on your read of how airlines are tackling this crisis? What insight can you share on their point of view in all this?
Well, I appreciate their predicament because this is an industry that is built around maximizing the saleability of your aircraft and maximizing how many people you can get into an aircraft. That'll increase the profitability of a flight. And so this is a very unique situation for them to be in. And I talked a little bit about this idea of blocking seats to allow for physical distancing. That's a good interim measure to help regain confidence, but it's not a long term solution. So airlines really are going to have to figure out another way to get people to come back. But I have to tell you that I have no doubt about the level of commitment that airlines have to winning passengers back, because I've seen items like change fees, which have been in place for decades,
Right.
wiped away. And there's airlines that have announced that they're getting rid of them forever. That's really a sign to me of how much this industry wants to get people flying again. And I think that's good because the end result will be a better experience.
Yeah, I'd like to wrap up on an optimistic note if we can. Where do you see air travel heading from here? What's a realistic goal?
We were hoping that by the end of this year, we'd be at about 50% of pre pandemic passenger levels. And I think that might be a tad optimistic. But we do see the recovery happening. We think that the low point was in April, and we've been steadily increasing the number of passengers and the number of airlines and the number of flights that we have. So we are already on the road to recovery. It's just the pace of recovery is a little slower than we'd like to see. But I do believe that once we kind of push through this next iteration, if you will, that kind of this next item that really needs to enable travel again, which will probably be this health concept, I think you're really going to see it recover very quickly, because we do believe that there's pent up demand. There's interest and desire to travel. We just need to make it easier for people to feel confident about it.
Absolutely. I know so many people are just, bouncing off the walls, wanting to get back out there. So you definitely have pent up demand.
That's for sure.
All right, Doug, thank you so much. This has been so great. Thanks for joining us on California Now.
Thanks for having me.
Doug Yakel is Public Information Officer at San Francisco International Airport. You can read more about the changing nature of air travel on their website, flysfo.com. And as always, we'll have links to all the places we talked about on today's episode and lots more on our website, visitcalifornia.com/podcast. This is California Now. A lot has changed for California's hotel industry in the last few months. One person who's put considerable thought into how hotels can best reassure travelers and help families on the road during the pandemic is James Bermingham. He's a veteran hotelier and executive vice president of operations for Montage International and Pendry Hotels. The two boast multiple unique and beautiful properties around the world, including Montage Laguna Beach in Orange County and Pendry San Diego. Welcome to California Now, James.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
We're so happy that you're able to join us. Before we get into some of the innovative programs Montage has created, I'd like to talk a little bit about the COVID-19 crisis in broad terms, like just how big of a challenge is this pandemic for your properties and for the hotel industry in general?
Well, it has been traumatic, to say the least, particularly the first 3 or 4 months, as we really focused on supporting state and our local authorities in mitigating the spread of the pandemic. And as a result, we closed substantially all of our operations. We maintained Montage Laguna Beach in a limited capacity as open, but we closed Pendry San Diego and all of the other hotels across the portfolio. So that disrupted not just our guests, but equally our associates. And it's been a pretty traumatic time. Having said that, we reopened all of our operations starting in June, and we are very pleased at the level of guests traveling to our hotels across the portfolio, but particularly in Laguna Beach, at Montage Laguna Beach, and in San Diego, at Pendry, San Diego.
What would you say the mood is of today's traveler? Do you get the sense that they're excited, hesitant, maybe a little bit of both?
It's definitely a little bit of both. On the one hand, it's very excited that they can travel again, spend quality time with family and friends away from home, and in either Laguna Beach or in San Diego for us. So, a very high level of excitement that their world and our world is beginning to return to a form of normality. So, super levels of excitement and equally appropriate measures of caution. And folks are very careful about how they decide to travel, where they're deciding to travel, and where they're going to stay. So an equal measure of excitement and caution.
So what exactly is Montage International doing to reassure travelers during the pandemic?
Well, Montage International has developed several programs and protocols designed to reassure our guests that traveling during the pandemic is safe. These include peace of mind commitment, which is a thorough focus on cleaning protocols and social distancing, signage, and standards. And the biggest and most well received protocol that we've added is a month long membership for our guests to One Medical. And One Medical is a leading national digital health and primary care organization that offers 24/7 virtual care services.
That's really great. So if you're a guest there and you're maybe feeling a little under the weather or you're just not sure about, something, you through the hotel, you are a member of this virtual medical practice basically, and you can kind of get a doctor's visit.
Absolutely. Equally important is to ensure that we build confidence in our associates. And as a result, we offer free membership to our associates to that same One Medical benefit, which gives them 24/7 access to virtual medicine. And in addition, we ask our associates to complete a brief questionnaire prior to going to work every day, which gives them a green light confirming that it's safe for them to come to work. And then on top of that, we ask our associates to do a self temperature check prior to coming to work. And then on arrival at work, we actually do a thermal digital scan of associate and anybody coming into any contractors coming into the hotels.
So it almost sounds like you're creating kind of like a bubble or almost like a pod in the resort itself so that, people can actually, relax.
That is the key. It's really helping to ensure that our guests feel very confident in our protocols, and it's working beautifully.
That's really great. I mean, so much of traveling is that you just want to get away and you do want to be able to let your guard down and just relax. So, being able to provide that sense of peace of mind just goes a long way.
It really does. And the other benefit that we have at Montage International and the great state of California has in abundance is terrific outdoor space. So dining, pool access is in abundance at all of our hotels.
hmm People's schedules are really have been disrupted, and a lot of people are working from home. Kids are going to school from home, and I understand that you have a new program called Montage Academy, which sounds really interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
We are very excited about this, Soterios, because as you know, everybody's work schedule now is extremely flexible in terms of where they can work from. And equally, school schedules are almost as flexible, and certainly from where you can attend class because so many of the kids are learning online. So we've created Montage Academy for students age 6 to 17 to enroll in full school days, including 24/7 virtual tutoring through tutor.com. Study hall is monitored, and educational programming, supplemental educational programming such as yoga or stretch breaks, hiking, art classes, conservation, and more. This enables parents to work distraction free or relax enjoying our incredible resorts while they know secure that their children are in a great learning environment.
So, what is the learning environment like? How exactly does it work?
So it's a dedicated study hall space, socially distant, and of course, a lot of our peace of mind protocols are applied here. But socially distanced, great IT access, supervised the whole time, and the guests can learn at their own time and schedule. Because as you know, a lot of our guests are on different time zones, or my two boys are on actually different work schedules, although it's the same school. So we can personalize and tailor the study hall based on individual children's learning times and schedules.
What's the reception been like so far?
It has been fantastic. It's been really well received. It's the other benefit is not just for us, but for our guests. It's extended what is the traditional summer travel season, which usually wraps up on or around Labor Day. But because of that flexibility of work schedule and that flexibility of online learning, it's really extended into September, and it's looking like it will through the month of October too. So it's really increased the opportunity for folks to travel outside of the traditional summer season.
California hotels probably have an advantage over properties in other destinations because the weather here is just so great. It's just easier to be outside in the fresh air. Are you factoring that into your operations?
We have an abundance of blessings here in California, but one of them absolutely is the climate. And, Laguna Beach, for example, for me, my favorite time of the year is September, October, and into November because the weather is absolutely fantastic. And it gets a little cooler in the evenings, but that's a great excuse to go and enjoy the fire pit and do family s'mores together.
I know you're opening up a new hotel, Montage Healdsburg, later this year. How has the pandemic informed the development of that property up in Sonoma County?
That's a great question. We are so excited to be opening in Montage Healdsburg in November of this year. It is a beautiful resort on 250 acres of rolling hills with beautiful oak trees and a working vineyard. So we're very excited about that. It's full speed ahead. We have incorporated all of our peace of mind protocols into the pre-opening planning of Montage Healdsburg. But like Montage Laguna Beach, it really offers incredible outdoor spaces. And we are very excited about bringing Montage Healdsburg to the wine country.
And 250 acres is huge, so you really have a lot of room to roam and kind of, be on your own a little bit.
Absolutely. And the guest rooms are beautiful. They're large and spacious, and every one of them has some great outdoor terraces as well. So it's a wonderful indoor outdoor experience.
That sounds lovely. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask your perspective. Are you optimistic about travel in 2021? Do you think things will return to normal relatively soon?
It's a great question, and if anybody tells you they have the answer, I would question their credibility. It really is a moving target. I will say the longer this year progresses, the more confident that I am becoming about 2021 because we've seen over the summer a pretty strong return for leisure travel, and that's continuing into the fall. We're beginning to see demand for smaller meetings, which is critical to the success of tourism in the great state of California, and equally for Montage International. So that's the great news. And having said all that, I think the industry is expecting um, I'd say 60 to 65% business levels in 2021 compared to, say, 2019. I do think the segment that's going to be slowest to come back is large conferences
Mm.
and citywides in particular. So if you think about markets like San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, and others that rely on citywide conventions, I think that's going to be a little slower to return than most other segments.
So that seems to make sense. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
Absolutely. If I may, we're in addition to Montage Healdsburg, which opens in November, we're very excited to introduce Pendry West Hollywood, our new hotel that will be opening in December. Pendry West Hollywood is on Sunset in Olive, one of my favorite parts of the cities in LA in West Hollywood. Wolfgang Puck will be doing all of our restaurants and bars, and he's very excited about rolling out 2 new restaurants and multiple outlets. So we're very excited about Pendry West Hollywood and bringing that to the market in December too.
That sounds great. I mean, I think so many people are so ready to get back out there, and so the fact that you're taking the pandemic so seriously and changing protocols and doing everything you can to make people feel at ease, I think that's really going to help people to just feel relaxed and feel confident that they can actually go out and have a good time and be safe as well.
It's so important that we combine the two. Continue to travel and do it in a very safe and conscientious way.
Well, James, this has been really great. Thank you so much for joining us on California Now.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
James Bermingham is Executive Vice President of Operations for Montage International, the folks behind Montage Laguna Beach and the forthcoming Montage Healdsburg, as well as Pendry Hotels with both Pendry San Diego and the upcoming Pendry West Hollywood. Learn more online at montagehotels.com and pendry.com. As always, we'll have links to all the places we talked about on today's episode and lots more on our website, visitcalifornia.com/podcast. This is California Now. No matter where your travels take you, formulating a plan for eating and drinking is a vital part of any trip planning exercise, and the COVID-19 pandemic has only complicated this process. Fortunately, California's hospitality industry has risen to the challenge, bringing new safety protocols and plenty of innovation to their facilities. Hamish Marshall owns the San Luis Obispo favorite Slow Brew, as well as the craft distillery Rod and Hammer's Slow Stills under the same roof. And we're going to talk to him about the challenges and opportunities introduced by the coronavirus. Welcome to California Now, Hamish.
Thanks for having me.
To start out, tell us a little bit about Slow Brew. What is it and where is it?
Slow Brew is a brewery on the Central Coast in San Luis Obispo, California. We've been around for about 32 years. We're actually the first microbrewery in California after Prohibition. So my partner, Rodney Sigelski, and myself took over the brewery about 10 years ago and really rebranded it and its products, etc., over the last 5 or 6 years. And we built a new facility, a 35,000 square foot facility out near the airport in San Luis Obispo that encompasses the brewery, tap room, our distillery, and our event center. So very lucky to have it. Great facility, great beer, and in a great location.
Wow, that sounds huge. So can you kind of paint a picture of what Slow Brew was like before the pandemic? Maybe a busy weekend night last year. How would you describe the scene back then?
We have 2 buildings. We have the brewery and the tap room. Then we also have a downtown pub with the Slow Brew lofts above it. And downtown San Luis Obispo is it's a bustling student town, really, really vibrant. And the busiest nights, Thursday through Sundays are just busy times. We have a fantastic farmers market downtown, so it was just a vibrant place to be. Great dining scene, great pub scene. The students would obviously come out a little later at night, but it was just vibrant. And since the pandemic hit, that obviously all changed because everything had to shut down. So that vibrancy for a period of time disappeared, and we went to takeaway food, and the town basically being a ghost town. Um, we said it was almost like Armageddon at one point. It was something that you couldn't even imagine.
Right, right. Do you have any outdoor seating that you're allowed to have people sit at?
Yeah, so both facilities have great outside dining. The one downtown has a great outside deck sitting over the creek that runs through San Luis Obispo, and the Rock, which is the brewery, is it's a big playground for adults and kids. So lots of outside dining. So we really got lucky when we came out of the pandemic because we were able to cater to that outside dining regulation. But in fact, San Luis Obispo just opened up 25% inside dining, and that's been fantastic.
That's great. So you're actually able to have people indoors and outdoors now.
Correct. Yep.
Can you still offer live music?
No, live music is something of the past right now, and it's something our roots were built on at Slow Brew. So that's been very difficult, but we've found a way to keep the music playing, and we've been doing a lot of live streaming with music, so with a lot of local bands. And so out at our event center out at the brewery, we've got a great setup. What we've been doing is getting the bands in, live streaming it, keeping the garage doors open, and then streaming it actually over the internet, but also through the brewery and the distillery. So it's almost like a live concert, but yet it's not. And that's been working out really well. People have been loving it.
That's really great. So it is actually live music in a separate location that you are streaming live out to your customers there on site and also on your website to everywhere, right?
Yeah, correct. And so we've got a big screen outside so people can see the band, and so where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely, that's a really cool workaround. Ballpark estimate: how is your business doing in terms of returning to normal? Is it like 50% of what it was before, 100%, 75? Where are you at?
So that's a really interesting question. It depends on which area you're looking at. So for the brewery itself, the pandemic, believe it or not, was very positive for the brewery. Our distribution, we're distributing in 13 different states right now. It's boosted our sales dramatically in all areas because everything went from on premise, which is selling kegs to pubs and restaurants, etc., because they didn't exist, to everyone drinking at home, so buying retail, pushed our pack, distribution through the roof. So that has been very, very positive to the business. It's probably grown 200% in the last 6 months.
Amazing.
The restaurant is doing okay. We're probably right now back to 80% of where we were. And then the downtown restaurant is, we're really probably at about 50% of where we were. The downtown is the hardest right now because obviously outdoor space is still limited. It's not as free. So that's definitely impacted business, a great deal.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the specifics in terms of sanitization and safety. What's the biggest challenge for you as change your practices to accommodate what's happening?
Well, I think it was a challenge at the beginning because this new norm. None of us have ever been through a pandemic before as such. So it was getting used to what the requirements were going to be, the restrictions, etc. And I think, some of those things included no inside dining, everyone having to wear face masks, glove protocol, sanitization, both of tables, chairs, bathrooms on a regular basis. So we put a whole stream of things together within our businesses where each employee has to have their temperature taken before starting work. All of our employees have to wear masks and gloves, both to protect themselves and the customers. The bathrooms get desanitized every 30 minutes. And then we've got this pretty cool thing on the tables, and it's a piece of wood with a green strip on the front and a red strip on the back. And green means it's clear to go, sit down, and red means it's been used and it hasn't been sanitized yet. So it was coming up with little things like that were a challenge at the beginning. Lines that separated people by 6 feet, tables that separated everyone by 6 feet. Those things were challenges, but now they've become the norm. And to be honest, we don't really think about it too much, and I think the public have got used to it as well. They're all respectful of each other. They're respectful of the staff, and really, I think they're thankful to be able to get out and about and enjoy good food, good beer, etc.
That sounds really great. I mean, I love a place that cleans its bathroom every 30 minutes. That's amazing.
You wonder why we didn't do it before.
Yeah, exactly. Have you had to hire more people, or are you just redeploying your staff?
No, we redeployed our staff. That's probably a big change, and not necessarily to the good. I think the pandemic helped a lot of businesses relook at how they were operating. We definitely have not brought back all staff. We're running at about 66, 67% of the staff level that we had before, but still doing more revenue. So we've definitely become more efficient. But at the same time, we're asking more of the staff that are here.
So how have your staff responded to these changes?
Exceptionally well. Slow Brew is a big family, and everyone got on board. Everyone abides by the rules. They take them seriously, and they've really raised to the situation, and they give it their best. And I think at the beginning, again, I think the customer base, they were a little confused. People were on edge. Staff were on edge because they didn't know how this thing was going to pan out. And we've been operating this thing now for about 3 months, and it's really become the norm.
What about the larger community? Have you seen innovations from the city of San Luis Obispo or from other establishments that impress or inspire you?
San Luis Obispo has 330 days of sunshine a year.
Right.
And we've got this great main street, Higuera Street, and it's a big, wide street. It's 3 lanes. It's got parking on either side. And for years, we've all discussed, let's get rid of the parking. Let's get more outside dining. Let's get more people on the street. And what's come out of the pandemic is, and not being able to eat inside are these parklets. So we've now got, these great outside dining areas that people are just loving. So it's bringing back that vibrancy that we had prior to the pandemic, but the city is now very much committed to leaving these parklets in place and continuing on with this outside dining on the main street.
Right.
I think that's going to be a game changer moving forward for San Luis Obispo.
And what you mean by parklet is where you kind of take over the on-street parking spaces and you make them, either a place where people can have seating, or you set up like a little park-like area right at the curb, basically. So you're kind of extending the sidewalk, right?
Yeah, and people have done great jobs. I mean, people have got out and put lounge areas, tables, plants, fairy lights. It's really, people have had to dig in deep and basically build a new restaurant, dining room outside. And, as you can imagine, that's had to take some creativity and some grunt to really come up with something that would work and make the public feel comfortable.
Are you optimistic about what the future holds for the restaurant and bar industry?
I think it's got a really tough run ahead of it. I think restaurants and bars in general, this is I would call it a generational shift of what we'll see. I think there'll be a lot of businesses that do not reopen. They're just having a tough go of it. I think it's location based. For example, New York, I think 30% of the storefronts for restaurants have not and will not reopen again. That's a big hit. So I think there are challenges within the industry that will continue on and will be difficult. I think there's also opportunity depending on location. And again, we're fortunate because we live in this beautiful little town on the central coast of California where people want to be, so that business is continuing to grow.
Well, Hamish, this has been a really great conversation. Thanks so much for joining us on California Now.
I very much appreciate being invited. Thanks.
Hamish Marshall is the owner of Slow Brew in San Luis Obispo, online at slobrew.com. He's also co-founder of Rod and Hammer's Slow Stills. That's slostills.com. As always, we'll have links to all the places we talked about on today's episode and lots more on our website, visitcalifornia.com/podcast. This is California Now. Thank you for listening to California Now. We hope you enjoyed this episode on traveling safely during the pandemic and get a chance to hit the road soon. This podcast is produced by Visit California. I'm your host, Soterios Johnson. You can find our show on iTunes and Stitcher. Please subscribe. At the top of this episode, I mentioned the Responsible Travel Hub, an invaluable resource you can find at visitcalifornia.com/respect. When you go there, be sure to check out the Responsible Travel Code, a set of 7 guidelines we're asking all travelers to read and follow. By honoring this code, you'll be doing your part to ensure that California remains a safe and viable travel destination over the long haul.